Hey, Shalom, Shalom. This your brother JAHsh, aka JAHsh. And first and foremost, all praises to existence, who is Yahweh, Akkad. And so tonight I wanted to get into a misconception that is prevalent upon Christianity, prevalent upon brothers and sisters who are in these camps, and prevalent amongst those who really just aren't hip to who we are as Yasharal and to our culture and our customs, and why Yahweh separated us from other nations. So in this particular study, or just brief, I'm going to go into it briefly. This is in regards to so-called tattoos, right? Because I hear a lot of folly amongst camps and church and, the system, in other words, that is built up around us to blind us to our culture as tribes people, as a tribal people, a cultural tribal people, which a lot of people tend to forget, and they have been captured by romanticism and so-called civilization, which in fact is just the civilization and the romanticism of our oppressors. So the so-called quote-unquote Western mind state. And a lot of people forget that we are Eastern. We are so-called Eastern, I should say, but we are of an Asiatic stock. So look no further than Asia to see some of our culture, our ancient culture, by the way, that's still prevalent. So let's just get into it. So the scripture that is always causing problems amongst people in church or whatnot is this verse here, Leviticus 19:28, and this is the King James version. I'm reading it because it's probably the most popular version. And it says, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh." And that's a deep statement alone. It really does take some good meditation, and as does all scripture. And reading it on the surface level will ultimately just get you where Christianity is. They always look at things on the surface level and never any deep thought. So, Salakia, drinking some coffee. Check it out. So Leviticus 19:28 says, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh," or "I am the Lord." It says that in King James version. And so here's the so-called Masoretic text, as they say. And let's see if we can go through it. Washaras or Washaras. Oh, my bad. That's a T. Washarat. Lanaphash or Lanaphash. Let's see. TATAW. Ba Bashar Rakam. Ba Bashar Rakam, or Bashrakam, or Ba Bashrakam, however your dialect is. We got Waka the Bot, or Wakatabat, or Wa Kaba the Bot, Kabatabat, Kabatabat, Kwa I, or Kwa Akai, or Kwakai, which is an abstract way of saying it, but a lot of more normalized it's Kwakai or Kwakai, or Kwa or kai. And if you want to be funny, you can say kaka. La, da, ba, la, da, ba, na, wa. La, da, ba, na, wa, or da, ba, na, ba, ka, ma, ba, kam, anai, or ana, Yahweh. So, Salach, if I got some of the letters off, I usually don't do any reading. But anyway, this is supposed to be, ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am Yahweh. And sorry if this is boring, but I usually read the same way, or I go over things similarly to the best of my ability, the way that I study it. So let's just break down what this means and where the misunderstandings are. So we got the word ye shall not make, which is Nathan, or Nathan, to make, in other words. Cuttings, sharat or sarat, or srat, in your flesh is basar. For the dead, so these are words we're going to get into, which is Nathan, sarat, naphash, or for the dead, or so-called for the dead, as they say here. Nathan, once again, ka'aka, or kwakai. Those are the highlighted words that we're going to get into. And because in those words, we find the misunderstanding of all this. So here, I was writing down some notes, and we got Leviticus 19:28. So Nathan, the word Nathan, na, right? Natana is to make. And whenever you go and you break down the letters of this word, to make, it actually, in the Paleo Hebrew, you have, and these are crude drawings, I apologize, you have the seed, you have the two sticks crossing each other, or the cross sign, in other words, and you have the seed once again. Ironically enough, the seed looks like a sperm, and you can apply the same meaning to it. So, in other words, action-wise, those letters mean continue to mark, or continuous marking, right? Which is like and we're going to get into it, but the mark being made is continuous, right? So the next word is, we're going to explain, or is sharat or sarat, which is the sharata, sharat or sarat. Some people pronounce the sh as a and which is an incision or a cutting, right? And this broken down, the sh can mean sharp. Not a lot of people know that. The ra would mean first, or head, or top, or point, right? The tippy top. And then back again, the t sound, which means a basket, or to surround, like large motions. Because remember, these are action words that we're talking about here, right? The so-called Hebrew, or Yahweh is a language built off action, for the most part. It's not a lot of stagnant wordings. It's built off motion, because it's a living language. It is alive. So it, and all praises to Yahweh, it is a living language. As we say, TATAW, living teachings. So there is let's just go down to here. So the next word we're going to get into, which is translated in the King James Version is the dead, is naphash, napah, or naphash, or naphash, napasha, right? Which is to continue, which is the right? Is a continuality, which once again we saw up here, the was a seed, or a continuation of moving or growing. In other words, just to continue. Salach. So we go to blow or to shatter, which is the pa or the fa is the action words of that is to blow or like to shatter, or to strike with passion. In other words, like to press with emotional vigor. In other words, which also is like the result of a blow is shattering also. And that also gets into the mind state of naphash, which can be, which in the King James Version, as we saw, it says that they call it dead. Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. But the trick here is that the word print and the word make is the same word, except in the English language, because they want to make you think it's something else, they put the word print. But in the word for to make and print is nathan. It's the same word. So we have ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh, any cuttings. You shall not make nathan any cuttings, sarat, in your flesh for the dead, naphash, nor nathan any marks. And marks also would be okay, I didn't go into that word marks because it's very similar once again to what it is as just an application to your flesh. It's not a word that's translated to something more particular like cuttings is. It's just like putting something onto your flesh, right? Upon you. So we got nathan, to make, sarat, an incision or cutting. Key word here, incision or cutting. And what we know as so-called tattoos is not an incision per se, nor is it a cutting, as if using it, when we look at the action words of these, sharp first, like using the tip of a blade, something sharp in the tip, and to press in a forceful motion, right? Sharp first surround, or something that's cut in a fashion to where it's a continual cutting of the area also, like a cut, an application, and then a more cutting of the same area. Now this stuff here is this stuff, I'm sorry. This requires deep meditation though, and you can't, once again, you can't just take it for the surface value, and you have to actually do cultural studies to see in compare and contrast with what we see in the scriptures also, which I'm going to attempt to go into. And Salakia, if this video is too short or if it's too long for you, I'm going to try to reiterate. So we got nathan once again, which they say is to print, but it really is the same word as to make. And that really is the same thing as continue to mark, like a continual motion, which what we saw tattoos can also be attributed to that same word nathan, because when you get tattoos today, it is a continuous motion. So nathan would be applied to that also, but where the difference is this word sarat, which is an incision or a cutting, which modern day tattooing as we know it is not a cut or an incision. It literally is an injection, a pressing or an injection of ink under the surface layer of the skin. Now, a lot of people aren't professionals, so they don't know what they're doing, right? And they do leave marks, or they can actually cut you if they don't know what they're doing, in other words. But according to our culture, we had people who did things by the rawak, So, and they were endowed with wisdom on how to do certain things. And ironically enough, the same things that I would say the fallen powers used to corrupt man, Yahweh, it has actually skilled Yasharal in those things like weaponry, arts, beautification, embroidery, things of that nature, things that were originally used by fallen powers or powers that chose to manifest, you know what I'm saying, as a willpower, so to speak. Well, those same powers were given into Yasharal's hands in times past to actually, for lack of better words, invoke or to pay homage to existence or to Yahweh or to the living existence. All praises to Yah. So, and another word we're going to go into is this one here, Kwakai, or Kwakai, or funnily Kaka, or Ka'akai, or Ka'aka, or Kwa'aka, right? It was also an incision, an imprint, or a mark. So the word that they use for that is any marks. So that word right there is a general word, which just means something that has happened to your skin by the means of Nathan, or that's made onto your skin. But if we are looking at the word naphash, means, which they translated to mean dead, which is a spiritual sense. So that means that you are not to make markings on your skin that is uninspired or is not in a way representative of who Yahweh is, or a way that is significant to who you are as Yasharal. And to take it further, you're not to do it in a bloodletting sense of to where you're continuing a spirit from generation to generation, like your grandfather's spirit to your father's spirit. That kind of thing is a no-no in Yasharal. All the markings that we have upon us represent a spiritual aspect. And when I mean that, by that means either we know internally what the markings externally represented internally, or it is also something to have on us to constantly remind us of an elevation of our mind. That is the true markings that Yasharal did upon each other, not the markings of other nations, which would be considered naphash, or which would be a continuation or cutting or destruction. In other words, a destruction of the body, which or torn or shatteredness of the body, which is a representation of the mind of the other nations, is that they had destructive minds, which they got from, obviously, from the fallen so-called powers, which were about destruction and chaos, so to speak. So we have continue, blow, shatter. So that's that word once again, a ripping, a shattering, like a ripping of the skin, which also is indicative of a ripping of the mind, an unwhole mind, which can be equated to death or to the dead. So that's another meaning behind that word naphash that people get to understand, because in Yahweh the Yah, naphash is considered a representing a soul or a power or a principal aspect, the soul, of breath, of a living or of an animated aspect. So basically like zombie, like the living dead in that sense, right? Which is also to press, right? Which is to apply with emotion or with passionate or with a heated desire. And it can also mean to eat, which is to destroy something, right? We eat it, we destroy it, we break it down. So we can see that you're not to get any marks upon you, representation of a spirit of destruction or unwholeness or shatteredness, right? Which comprises the naphash. And also on the surface, though, where it says that thou shalt not get anything that represents the dead, which also, and we're going to go into it as the other nations did, in representing more so bloodletting than anything else. And that's another thing. There is a little bit of blood that comes to the surface of your pores, that wherever the ink is in modern day tattoo, but it's not the same as bloodletting. But it can be a sin based on who is giving you the tattoos. If you're getting a tattoo from someone who isn't spiritual, then that transfer, because there is a transfer of or not necessarily a transfer, but there is a leakage of blood. You know what I'm saying? So, or at least the external blood, because it's not the same as what the blood that's inside of you. Once it's external, it is exposed. Therefore, it is no longer alive. So it's also a shedding, or it's also a small form of the copper or the altar of sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? A small form. But let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. And if there's anything that I'm saying or I'm going too fast over, or I don't want to make this too long, just leave me a comment and I'll go more in depth into it or whatnot. So let's go and check out some examples. We're going to go through this briefly, right? And also, I'm sorry, there is a preface to this also in Leviticus 21:5. If I can see if I have that up. No, I don't. It gives you, let's see if I can just go to it real quick on this. My computer's slow. Leviticus 21:5. See if we can go to it just to get a precept. So Leviticus 21:5, they shall not make baldness upon their head, neither shall they shave off the corner of their beard, nor make, which is Nathan, once again, any cuttings. And there's that word cuttings, right? Which was sarat. And we're going to show some visual explanations of that on their flesh. And because this is pertaining also to the corners of their beard. And there's a reason why we should not destroy the corners of our beard like other nations did. Once again, because naphash is to shatter or to destroy or to tear and eating away, right? So we're going to go into a little history, and all this is just a skimming over. Once again, I'm using Wikipedia, although for this particular subject, Wikipedia is actually got a lot of info on it. So we're just going to go cut, no pun intended, cut to the chase. And we're going to go down here to show you that where they actually got that word tattoo, and that's the deception that they use within these Christian and theological schools, or Roman schools, in other words, romanticizing everything. Looks like I'm not going to be able to find it off the bat. But the word tattoo is a Tahitian word, or a so-called Polynesian word, which still represents to make a mark, because their language is an offshoot of Semitic languages. If you never heard Polynesian language, then you should check it out. And you'll be quite surprised at the word sound and power of it. It's very similar to Yahweh, right? So there's a mixture in there somewhere. Salach, I cannot find it. Where is it at? This is what happens when you do stuff late in the day. So anyways, I can't find where it is. The word was called TATAU, TATAU, which can be translated or which has been translated as tattoo by the so-called European upon his visitation to the Polynesian islands. Let's see, Europe. I just can't find it. What the heck? Anyhow, so we see here from that word tattoo. Look at this. Just check this out real quick. Like, you have, let's see if you can see that. That's the sign right there of two sticks crossing, or a cross sign. Another sign of the tall cross sticks. But it also represents, it can represent a mark, a sign, or a signal. And that's in our early, so-called early pictographs. And that represents a sign. So it should be no wonder, it should be not a surprise that the so-called cross is a derivative or a sign of a covenant, or also the tav can be represent a covenant also, or a monument in a culture. So it shouldn't surprise you that they would use something of ours in a bastardized way, right? In fact, what we, in that odd right there, like X-Men, you know what I'm saying? Should give y'all some insight of the trickery that they try to pull over our eyes. And this is the equilateral cross, so-called. And we got more examples of that too, just to show you that we are a tribal people. We have ancient culture, and Japheth mixed with Idumea, as Japheth would take refuge in our tents, or take refuge in our culture, in our ways, in our resting places, our resting thoughts, and presumably almost fool the world into thinking that they are JAHsh when they are not, right? Salakia. So let's go. Let's get into this. So this is African scarification. And this is a perfect example of what JAHsh is not to do, right? Round, right? Press, shatter. Remember the word sarat, the ta at the end of that, like a basket weave, a round motion. You can see here that this rounding of the face, this is a rounding, and this is near where the beard mark would be. JAHsh is not to do that, because hair will not grow back onto this particular part of your face. Right? Look at this brother right here. Or I should say brother, but yeah, he's got scarification where hair would be. Hair will not grow there, even if he was able to grow it, because of this scarification. See this here? See how these scars go where the hair of the cheek would be? The corners of the beard. This is one thing, and once again, this shows that we were a tribal people, and Yahweh, of course, was cognizant of what we could be prone to do amongst other nations who were very similar to us in appearance, but their actions are not. See this scarification of this sister, right? That cutting, that pressing, that emotional pressing of the skin, which is an incision, a cut. That is not what we are to do, right? Because it destroys, it separates. It doesn't heal right. It heals as a blemish, right? Look at that. There's more and more. So this is something that y'all should understand. We are old people. So these are all scarifications, cuttings and marks for the dead, in other words, because none of these marks or cuttings is in any fashion an elevation to Yahweh. By no means. These are all ritualistic, some things for manhood, some things to pass generational spirits amongst each other, some things for tribal what is it? Look at this right here. Look at this. Look at this face. The hair will not saying that they even grow hair, but this is, nothing will grow right. Look at the side of this face. It's totally scarred, right? Look how it healed. In fact, they are known to actually put dirt and put all kinds of filling inside these incisions to make them pronounced upon the skin. So this is just explanations, a brief explanation of things that JAHsh as tribal peoples in a tribal culture. Look at that. Destruction of the skin. Where'd that go? Salach. Where'd that go? Right there. Look at that. Destruction of the skin. See that? Just to prove to you that Yahweh is on point and correct. Right? So let's go to another thing that we are not to do, and a lot of us still do it, is branding. See the destruction of the skin? It heals ugly. Right? That's raised. Branding is a popular thing nowadays also. It's a no-no. And of course, us as minorities, so-called black people, where do brandings happen a lot? That's right, you guessed it. In sororities, in Greek fraternities, right? This is what we are not to do. No branding. Because why? Animals get branded too, right? So-called slaves got branded too, right? It's like, yeah, my phone is acting up, but just to show y'all what we are not to get into. Because it is destruction and shatteredness of the mind. It doesn't heal right. No matter how it comes out. Look at that. Look at that craziness right there. It's craziness right here. Salach. Yeah, my phone is not looking at it right, but this is actually a tattoo that has been branded, so it's going to heal real fast.